Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about 10 things that I hate about my 2011 Mustang GT. And I must preface this video by saying these are not 10 reasons that I hate my Mustang GT. These are 10 completely trivial things that I do not like about my car. Overall, this has been a great car. It has been one of my favorite cars that I've ever owned, and I very much enjoy it. So before you're about to go into the comments and be like, I don't see him doing it, there's no need. You can do something productive instead if you want to. Also, we're extra amped up because we got some coffee. Let's get into it. These things, by the way, are in no particular order, but the first thing that I hate about my Mustang GT is the color. And you might be thinking, you are an idiot. First of all, true. Second of all, I have said time and time again that I am not really a fan of silver cars. And yet, I have owned 3 silver cars. Silver is one of my least favorite colors for a car. So why do I keep buying silver cars? It's literally always been because of convenience and something being a decent deal. For the overall condition of this car and the price that I got it for, I couldn't be much happier. There's a reason why I decided to just go with this car even though it's silver, and that was that it was a good deal. I like the things that were done to the car, and the two-tone of it, although not everyone's cup of tea, does make it slightly better for me. I do like it overall. But no, not a fan of silver. Wish it was a different color. Maybe I'll paint it a different color in the future. I don't know, but for right now, I love the car. Number 2 is the suspension. Now, the issue with the suspension on this car is all of it has been replaced at some point, and I have my suspicions about the car being on cut springs. Now, I have had this car up on a lift and gotten a good look at it underneath, and it doesn't seem like the springs are cut, but I don't know of these springs being any particular brand, and the car is definitely lower than stock, especially in the front. It does tuck tire ever so slightly. Well, the struts that are on it are a KYB strut of some sort. I forgot the exact model, and they were on the car when I bought it, and I'm sure they're good struts when they're new, but they are all completely blown. There's very little damping action whatsoever, and the springs are very stiff. So this is very potentially the worst riding vehicle I have ever not only owned, but driven or been in. It rides like absolute crap. It feels like you're driving an unloaded dump truck. It's not my thing. It definitely needs the suspension replaced in the future. It would help not only performance, but also comfort, which is not normally something that's like super high on my roster for a fun car, but it's pretty bad right now. The third thing that I hate about my Mustang GT is the wheels and tires that are on the car, and or the overall condition of the wheels and tires, aka the paint. For whatever reason, whoever owned this car before, whether it was the last owner or the owner beforehand, I think this car has had 4 or 5 owners, including me, I can't remember off the top of my head. Someone painted these wheels. These wheels were clearly originally chrome, and they painted them black, and they just painted right over the chrome with no prep work whatsoever. The paint ships right off, and it is a shiny surface underneath. So there is no point in painting something if you're not going to prep it well, and because of that, the wheels now have super chippy paint, and it looks bad, and I am not a fan of it, but wheels and tires are expensive, so it's not exactly something that I can just replace willy-nilly. The tires are still in good condition. I'm probably gonna wait until the tires wear out before I replace the wheels and tires, but I definitely will at some point because these wheels are not my favorite design in the first place, and that in addition to the fact that I wish I had better fitment, and one of the wheels has a slight bend in it, and they're all chipping really bad, just means that I don't like them, nor do I want them on the car. Also, side note, I've never been a huge fan of black wheels. Well, I guess I shouldn't say never, but over the past several years, it kind of hasn't really been my thing. I think it can look good in certain situations. I don't want black wheels on this car personally, so that's definitely something we're gonna be replacing in the future. Number 4 is something we probably won't be replacing in the future, which is the cheapness of the interior. This is a 2010s Ford product. The interior is not great. Granted, I don't actually think the interior is as horrendous as a lot of people make it out to be. The things that are changed in the interior over like a base model Mustang on this is a premium, are pretty decent. The quality of the leather on the seats is not too bad, and you know, the steering wheel, it's okay. But the parts that are the same, no matter what Mustang you get, like the door panels and the material of the dashboard and stuff like that, it's all super cheap, super chintzy, and brittle, hard plastic. It's not very nice. It doesn't bother me that much. If I was going to buy a brand new car that I wanted to be nice, comfortable, and luxurious, sure, I would dislike it, but on a car of this age, oh well, it's not a huge deal, but it's definitely not something that I like. And the number 5 thing that I hate about my Mustang GT would be the wear of the interior. I don't understand what sort of acidic sweat of destruction people seem to emanate from their hands, because a lot of the buttons and stuff like that on the radio, as well as the steering wheel controls, the black finish on them is completely worn and or chipped away. That's something that's really common for a lot of cars of this era, especially from the United States and stuff like that. That does happen, but the weird thing to me is that I've owned multiple vehicles from this era with kind of the same type of buttons. I've never worn away the finish of buttons before. I don't understand how people do that. I don't understand what sort of weapon of destruction their sweat must be to wear the buttons away like they do, but whoever it was has just utterly destroyed the buttons on the steering wheel. They all look really, really bad, and that's something that I'm gonna have to replace in the future. Which, side note on that, they do make these little stickers that you can replace the buttons with if they do get worn out. The only problem is, these are completely flat and a lot of the buttons aren't. So these don't actually sit nicely on the buttons. You can see one is gone, which was the one of the radio controls, like the power button or something like that, which is very worn away on my car's radio. And it doesn't fit because that is like a concave button. This sort of plasticky sticker doesn't sit nicely on that. So if you've considered replacing those with this, just consider these might not work as well as you would think. And not to mention, also when it comes to wear of the interior, the leather seat is also torn on the driver's side, which is kind of annoying. You don't notice it if you're sitting there, but obviously it doesn't look great. It's not in a spot that's crazy noticeable, but it's not something that I really like, so I'll probably replace these seats in the future with some nicer bucket seats, so all will be okay. The number 6 thing that I hate about my Mustang GT is that the clutch pilot bearing is going out, which means it makes a noise that sounds like a dying animal. The car still shifts fine, the clutch still works fine, but of course that bearing whine is always there every time you push in the clutch, and it is certainly not my favorite thing about the car. It's just annoying because it's something that doesn't really affect the function, at least right now, of the car, but every time I push in the clutch, especially when I'm like in a drive-thru or something like that, hearing that sound bounce off of the walls that are around me is just kind of disappointing. I'm probably going to replace the clutch with a different clutch kit in the future in general, and the flywheel, so that will change that out and that won't be an issue, but here we are. It is currently an issue. Oh well, it's not the end of the world. It's just something that I definitely find very annoying. The number 7 thing that I hate about my Ford Mustang GT is that the shifter is only okay. Obviously, everyone complains about the MT82 and it being a crap transmission, this, that, and the other thing. I owned a Subaru WRX. I know what crap transmissions are like. I never had an issue with that one. I don't really think I'm gonna have an issue with this one. Even if I do, oh well. This is not my only car. It's not the end of the world if that happens. Another thing that people complain about is that the shifter on the stock MT82 transmission is complete crap. Well, I think some people are a little over dramatic about that. It's by far nowhere near the worst shifter I've ever used, but it's not great. There's not a lot of feel to it, and it's kind of clunky, and it's not always easiest to find gears. There's definitely a lot of transmissions that are worse when it comes to their shifters and how they feel. The MT82 is not 100% horrible. I think it's honestly not as bad as people make it out to be, but because the MT82 transmission has other problems, people lump in the shifter with being just as garbage. It's not complete garbage, but it's not great, and it's definitely not something that I like, and it is something that I will be replacing in the future as well. The 8th thing that I hate about my Ford Mustang GT is the solid rear axle. Saying I hate it is a little bit strong. Oh well, obviously I would prefer that the car had independent rear suspension, but mostly, other than the fact that the solid axle itself, the thing that I dislike the most about it is the poor quality of like suspension components that actually go with that solid rear axle. So for instance, the lower rear control arms, the bushings are just too squishy. They allow the axle to move around too much, as well as the upper control arm mount. It's basically, it's a 3-link from the factory. And with simple changes like that and just a slightly better panhard bar, it would be a much better performing rear suspension on this car. Cars even like the Boss 302, which actually didn't change much at all with the rear axle, is a much better performing car. Why they didn't do that with the Mustang GT itself beats me, but it's not a horrible rear suspension, but it's not great, and it definitely needs some help with some aftermarket lower control arms and stuff like that. And that's also something I plan on doing in the future to decrease wheel hop and overall axle movement that is definitely noticeable as you drive the car over time. The number 9 thing that I hate about my Ford Mustang GT is the window short drop fault. So you see this? That is supposed to close that gap as it goes up, but it did not. Shut it again, still not. Shut it again, still not. Shut it again, still not. This is what I'm talking about. Sometimes it just doesn't do it. There it goes. Did it that time. As you can see, closed well, open it up, window drops down like it's supposed to, shut it, and it shuts normally. Completely random. For instance, right now, you can't see, but my window has left a small gap from the top of where it's supposed to seal as I have shut the door right now as it's sitting in the garage. Now, for any of you that are familiar with this, you might be thinking, oh, that's a really easy fix. You just hold down the window button for 3 seconds and then pull it up and then hold it up for 3 seconds, or vice versa, or a billion different combinations of the same thing, and it'll fix the issue. Well, it doesn't. Another thing that people have said is, hey, disconnect the battery while the window motor is moving, and that will basically unlearn the window motor. You have to relearn it in general. That'll fix the problem. Well, it didn't for me. I assume the problem is with the window motor itself, or maybe it's the window regulator. I'm not 100% sure, but it just, nothing seems to fix the problem. Sometimes it shuts and the short drop, you know, it goes back up like it's supposed to. It always goes down when I open the door, but it does not always go back up. There's no rhyme or reason for why it happens. I can't figure it out. It's worse when it's cold. I don't know. It's just something that it does. It's not the end of the world, but it's really, really annoying because for me, with cars, if there's a mechanical failure with a car, well, I can figure that out in my head. I can go through the process of what it is, and I can eliminate, you know, this thing from this thing from this thing, and generally try and figure out what is wrong with the car. Electrical problems are so annoying because there's just not always a figuring them out. Sometimes you just have to fiddle with stuff and replace stuff until something eventually works. That's kind of where I am with this. So definitely annoying, and I don't know why it happens. If any of you guys have any knowledge about this, please let me know. Like I said, I've done what everyone has suggested. Nothing has worked for it yet, but I mean, oh well, it's not the end of the world. And the number 10 thing that I hate about my Mustang GT is the previous owner. Now, I don't literally hate the previous owner. I've never known him, but I do hate some of the things that he's done. And this has been a common thread of like every car I've ever owned. Just some stupid ways of doing things that I do not understand. The rear spoiler, clearly the car had a different rear spoiler on it at some point. Someone decided to put the factory little like ducktail rear spoiler back on it and then put on a wicker bill. But because of that, where the other spoiler mounted, which judging by the mounting points, it was probably a California special or something like that, that means that there's just exposed hardware to fill those holes, and they leak. They did the two-tone paint job, but they didn't have it done very well, or maybe they did it themselves, I don't know. So there's little dust particles and stuff like that in the paint. The paint, not superb quality. It's okay, it's not great. They put these goofy coyote badges on the side that I have no idea why anyone would think is cool. Maybe you do, and if you do, I'm sorry. I think they look ridiculous. Not a fan. Regular 5.0 badges are now on the car, as you might be able to see. The painting of the wheels, having no prep work done. Painting the calipers a blue that matches nothing else on the car. There's so many random things that I just don't understand why they were done like that, or why they were not fixed, or why, whatever. Just different things that some of them could be so simple and could have really saved heartache for either the previous owner themselves or me in the future, that I don't get why they weren't done. The tire lettering that says Boss 302 Stang Hyper Modi Dash V8. Motivate, it's so dumb, I can't even handle it. But it's glued onto the tire, so there's not really any removing it, or at least not without risking the tire. So, oh well. I don't mind tire lettering if it's the actual lettering on the tire. Putting little basically like foam stickers on the tire, I think that's dumb. I'm sorry if you don't, but I do. But with all of that being said, I do not hate this car. Like I said, this has been a great car. It is by far the fastest car that I've ever owned. It's very, very fun. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And I honestly couldn't be much happier with it, all things considered. Has it annoyed me from time to time? Absolutely, sure. But has it brought me so much joy and also brought joy to my friends? Absolutely. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content on my Ford Mustang GT as well as other car content in general. And if you enjoyed this video, keep an eye out for within the next few days where you will see the next upload about this car, which will be 10 things that I love about my Ford Mustang GT. And with that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching once again, and I will see you guys in the next one.